There's a lot of talk right now about what's called the Tur angle 144. That's the average angle the pro sets up at with his irons, 144 degrees. You can see this fellow's really close to that position. Arms are hanging fairly straight down from the shoulders, comfortable. Hands are pretty close to his thigh. Let's just see if he can return to that position with the hips open at impact. So we'll watch the takeaway now. He's going to waggle a little bit. Now he's moving around. Notice as he moves around, he's changing all the angles and positions. You got to be really cautious when you do that. Oftentimes your first setup is the correct setup. Let's watch the takeaway now. Hands are moving out away from the body a little bit. And again, we're getting a really late wrist set where the hands are well high before the club is set. But right there, notice the club is blocking our view of the hands. That's a good position right there. Head is staying relatively quiet. Going to the top. Great extension there. Look how much extension is. And also notice that the face of the club and the left forearm are parallel. That's a great position to be in. Now he's going to drive back. Now he went too far. If he'd have stopped right there, he'd have been perfect. But he went too far. Got himself a little out of position. Overbent his right arm, so his left arm had to bend. Now he's got to overcome the gravity of the weight of the club to get it back into position. Let's see if he brings it down under the red line. He's not going to be. You can see he's above the red line. So he's going to be outside. Boy, to return it good there, didn't he? Look what he's doing. He's getting the club parallel to the trail arm. Starting to lay it off, that's called. Routing that club to the inside. Right on through to the inside. Good position there. Let's see some hip action. A little late with the hip. If we'd have got a little bit more hip rotation through, that would have been a really good one. Look at the club now, still parallel to the swing plane as he exits his body. Turns right on through to a nice finish. That was a really good swing. Okay, we see pretty good posture here. His spine's at 36 degrees. 30 is perfect, so that's close enough. That could be an error just in my drawing. But it looks good. Let's watch the turn now. He's going to take the club back. Notice it's staying right on the bottom yellow line. That's the plane line. That's a really good takeaway right there. That triangle of his arms and shoulders is going back really nice. A little bit of lifting, not bad. But right about there is where he should be stopping, so that the right elbow is almost straight in line with the vertical line there on the spine angle. And he goes a little too far. See how the club now is dropping down. So we'd want him to try to stop about right there and have the club more parallel to the target line. Now he's going to come up and he's going to start down. If he can start down now on that vertical line, see his hands are starting down the vertical line, he's in a great position to turn right on through. The club is staying below the plane. Perfect. What we don't see is at the impact position, we'd like to see more of his butt sticking back towards the camera. So he's got a little bit more rotation. So he's not getting that good bump in rotation early in the swing. So it's still kind of a top-down swing right on through to the finish. Notice that the club here is exiting parallel to the swing plane. Let me clear some of this stuff out of the way. You can see that really nicely now that that club is parallel to where it was at setup. See how nice that is? And that's what we look for. Look for the club to stay parallel to that swing plane throughout the entire swing. Very good job. Now it's just a matter of getting skillful enough that we can hit the ground every time we want. We're going to start with a good setup, and then what's going to do, it's going to fall apart at the top of his backswing. Starts back pretty nicely there. We should get right now the club should be parallel to the ground. So we got to get that club set earlier. Then as he continues on back, he overfolds his left arm, which creates his right arm to fold. Remember, the trail arm only folds 90 degrees. If it folds more than that, you can't keep your forearm, your front forward arm, straight. Now he's in a pretty good position, except he's too close. You see how close he is here? His hands are too close to his head. We need him as far away from your ear as you can get it. So now he's going to start down, and because he's already in a bad position, he's not able to get good extension down through, and he's going to end up scooping the ball off the ground. Good hip shift. Everything's good, except as he comes in, you can see the left hand is well under the club. You can see the palm facing out towards us. and under the club he goes, scooping the ball off the ground, which is a weak hit. At this point now, the club should still be back here. The left wrist should be bent back. We should be getting club lag. The face of the club is straight to the sky here. He's scooping the ball under. Never gets his upper body transferred through, and ends up kind of falling backwards. At this point now, we should see his whole lead side on that line. His left shoulder, his left ear, his left hip, his left knee up on that line. He's falling back on that line right there, so the weight hasn't transferred forward. Here we see a really good setup. You can see the butt is quite a ways out behind the heels. The knees are flexed out over the shoelaces. More importantly, the spine angle's at a good tilt. And we've got the club plane bisecting the back. Not too low, not too high. Now let's see what happens on the takeaway. Ideally, the club will go right back on that white line. It's a little bit high. Now, if he was setting his wrists here, that club would be in a perfect position. But he's not. He hasn't set the wrist early. Remember, at mid-thigh, we want the club parallel to the ground. So the club is a little too far outside, and it's shut. You can see the face of the club is still more to the ground than it should be. So he's going to continue lifting here. So now, see how his head lifted up here? Now he's lost his spine angle by several inches. That means the club now, if he doesn't do anything else but swing down to the ball, leaves his head up there, he's going to miss. So let's see what happens. He's going to have to drive back down to the ball, which he does. That's more movement than we'd like to have. His hands are still above the swing plane. He's dropping it in closer, still above the swing plane. Now remember, we want the club to be parallel to the trail arm. You can see that it tends to be a little more parallel to the outside arm. So then we're going to drop we need to drop the hands under that white line in order to have a good contact point. It's going to hit the ball, come on through, makes pretty decent contact, a little bit on the heel of the club. A little bit of hip rotation, not much, a little bit more now. Let's see where the club exits. See, the club is exiting pretty much parallel to the white line, so it's pretty good. We just need to get more hip rotation, good finish. We need to get those hands back down under the white line on the way to the ball. When we think about good posture, one of the things we think about is that our head is on a straight line to our spine. And you can see that we've got a big bending of the shoulders here. And the head is well below the spine angle. One of the things to do there is to hang a golf club behind your head with your right hand, and with your left hand push the other end of the club tight up against the lower part of your back or the upper part of your butt cheeks, and bend forward, keeping that contact all the way forward. So you have a nice straight line, or as comfortable a line as you can get. We've got 10 to 12 inches of head drop here. That's going to throw his movement off a little bit. Let's get rid of that line. Now let's watch the takeaway here. Going a little bit flat. Notice how what we're doing here is the left arm is going out away from his body. So the club ends up going on a flatter line, too far behind him. It's not in a bad position there. And right now, if the club went straight back on this line that it's on, straight back down that line, it would be in a pretty good position. You can see that. What's going to happen is it's going to go above that line a little bit. See that? The club is going above that line. That's just enough to create a little bit of a cut. Now it's well above the line, and I think if he was standing a little more erect, he wouldn't be doing that position right there. And his hands have dropped in, and he's scooping under the ball. Notice how the lower body hasn't led the swing at all. The lower body is really stuck here. And his spine angle now is considerably lower than the 30 degrees we'd like to see. As a matter of fact, let's just take a look and see what that spine angle is. We'll draw a line straight down, then a line to his head, 50 degrees. That's way too much. So he's getting stuck because of the setup. We're going to look for two things here. One, we're going to watch to see if the spine angle gets maintained during the backswing, which means his back should be parallel to that tilted line, that 18-degree line. And does the club set early on the backswing? So at the middle of his thigh, we want the club to be parallel to the ground when his hands reach the middle of his thigh. So let's see what happens here. He's going to start the club back. Right about now, we'd like to see the club parallel to the ground. You can see it's really late in getting set. You'll also notice that the back does get parallel to the 18-degree line. So he's done a really nice weight transfer, but because he didn't set the club early, when he sets it late, he ends up with the left wrist cupped. And you can kind of see that from that angle right there. That's an open club face, and it's really hard to get that back to the impact zone square. So now at this point now he should shift his lower body as he starts into the swing. His lower body should shift into that line. He's doing very nicely there, pulling through. Now notice, right now the club is parallel. We'd like to see it a little above parallel at this point. Through, let's see if we can watch the rotation of the club. He's decelerating now. You can see that the club breaks down. And see, the hips quit turning. Right now, the belt needs to be turning. The belt buckle needs to be turning to face the target. Shoulders are nice and square, but the hips have not opened yet. We've got to rotate those hips rapidly here so that he can extend down the target line. His hands are too close to his body. His left elbow's starting to break down. He's going to chicken wing a little bit. Doesn't get any rotation of that belt buckle to the target. He does there, but now he's ending up with his head past his foot. So we got to get him to get that lower body turning through a little bit earlier in the downswing. One of the things we notice with this setup is that the back is a little rounded, right like that. We'd like to get the back straighter. That's not a rounding from the shoulders. That's a rounding because we don't have the butt out and up, and we're not firming up the core muscles. So let's watch the takeaway here. We're going to draw a little circle here around the hands. We'd like to see those hands stay in that circle and get the club head into that circle during the takeaway. So the hands are staying in the circle pretty good, but you see again, we're late in getting that club up to parallel. Get the club up to parallel a little sooner. At this point now, the club should be in the circle, the club head should be in the circle, and the hand should be dead center in the circle. This isn't too far off, but we'd like to... Now he's kind of too far back inside. Again, if I take a line and I draw that line from where the ball is up through the middle of his back, you can see he's quite a bit below the swing plane. That's going to create a over-the-top move on the way down. There it is, over the top. So we've got to get him to work on keeping the club above the line on the way back, and so he can return. See how his hands are well above that circle? Remember where they were? They were in the middle of that circle on the takeaway. They've got to get back to that circle on the way down. Pulling up out of the shot. See that? Head's lifting up. And he's standing up with both legs. So the right side is not turning at all. He's just getting up on his right toe and flipping the club and then turning. We have to have the turn create the momentum for the club, not the momentum of the club creating the turn. Look here at the hands. We can see the hands are pointing in different directions. If we drew a line here from the left thumb forefinger angle, it's going to go that way, and the right thumb forefinger angle is going to go that way. They're going in different directions. We want our setup so that the V formed by the forefinger and the thumb both point between the lead ear and the lead shoulder. It can't be in opposite directions, or we're going to find ourselves being jammed up by our hands. So let's go ahead and bring him back to his normal setup here, and let's see what happens on the takeaway. My guess is he's going to scoop this ball drastically by keeping his left hand too far under the club through impact. Nice, smooth, liquid takeaway. Very nice move. But see, you can see right there, the hand under the golf club, stays under the golf club. He gets no rotation. He's not able to rotate the right elbow down and the left thumb up, so we can see the glove fingers, not the glove hand. On through to the finish. Now, once again, our goal is to get our body lined up over this foot so that our left ear, left shoulder, left hip are all moved onto that line. So what he's done here is he's spun around on his trail side rather than shifting to his front side. If anything, we'd like to see the hip out here a little further. We see here a pretty good setup, but in his takeaway, right prior to his takeaway, he does a forward press, but instead of just pressing with his hands to make sure his shoulders and hips and everything stay square, his whole body presses forward. Let's watch this move. Right there. See that? Opened up everything. See how much the hips have opened up, the knees? Now the shoulders have opened up so much that I can almost see the lead arm in below the trail arm. Remember, we want the right arm, in this case, the left-hander, to have his right arm above his left arm before he takes the club back. Otherwise, we're going to take the club back too far above the plane, or we're going to struggle on making plane. So let's see what happens. There he goes, straight above the plane, well high. Now if we can drop that down in, see now the club face is shut. Now he's raising up a little bit. Now let's see if he drops that club in under the plane. Trying to, but he can't because his left arm is stuck behind him so far. Then he's going to get into this position here where you see the hands are really too high. And I'm going to get this red line out of the way. And you're going to watch that his left arm goes under. And he scoops the ball. There he's scooping it. See, he has got no release of the club. He swung the wrong end. And he's kind of going to, there's the chicken wing that we look at all the time, where that right elbow sticks straight out like that. Or in a right-hander's case, it's the left elbow. And we've got no rotation this way so that we can see all the spikes on his trail foot. Let's follow on through to the finish. Never quite gets to the finish position, the follow through. Okay, we see a pretty good setup here. Let's watch what happens on the takeaway. Dancing around a little bit. There she just stood up. See that? She was pretty good set right there. And then she stood up as she moved her feet around a little bit. Pulled up a little out of the spine angle. Club still in the same place. Now she's taking that club too far to the inside. And notice that there's not getting any wrist hinge. When your hands are at mid-thigh, mid-trail thigh, right side in this case, the club should be parallel to the ground. She hasn't got any hinge yet in the wrists. She's going to go to the top. It hinges late. Now she's right on plane. Now if she can drop that club down the white line back to the red line, not bad. Now she's a little over the top. So we just need to get that club down that way a little bit. She's going to be a really good position. Comes right on through plane here. And what we're seeing is a pulling into the arms instead of extending down the line. And that's caused because the right knee, instead of turning to the left knee, is kind of coming out a little bit. She's pulling those hands in. At this point, we should still be able to see the hands out on the target line further. Right on through. So we're going to work on getting a little more arm extension through the hit. I think the most important thing we're going to notice with this golfer is how he appears to be trying to thrust the head of the club at the ball. And you'll notice that as he takes the club back, he's going to kind of lift it. At about this point now, he's lifting the club up. He's a little tight right in here. Club face now should be parallel to the lead arm. And you see that the club face is very flat, pointing to the ground. He's going to come up here. And here's where he starts pushing the club with the hand, primarily the right hand, out and away from him. See how it's moving out? What he's going to do is he's going to end up with the club parallel with the lead arm right there, parallel with the lead arm, where it should be more parallel to the trail arm. So the hand should be lower, then the club can be parallel to the trail arm, and we won't swing it way outside the target line. And you can see from this angle right here, as soon as he moves into the target line, that club is going way outside the hands. Way outside, and then he's going to cut across it. That's what's going to give him that little bit of a slice. The other thing we see is the club is exiting too vertical. It's not exiting on the same line as the swing plane, which would be closer to the yellow line, parallel to that. This golfer's bent over a little too far. We'd rather see the spine angle around 30%. You can see this is over 50%. 50 degrees, I should say. Sorry about that. What's going to happen then is he's going to be a little stuck on his follow-through. He's not going to be able to rotate his hips as much under his body. Let's watch the takeaway here. Let's draw another line in showing the swing plane. There's the swing plane right up that shaft line right there. Let's see what he does here. He's above the plane on the way back, so he's pretty close right there. Not bad position there. He's going to get up just slightly above the plane. Now, if at this point now he can drop that club down on the plane, he'll be in good shape, but he doesn't. He comes over the top. He does manage to get the club starting to get parallel to the trail arm, but he's still not quite on the plane. He's above the plane line. See how the shaft is not parallel to the white line? Then he's going to come through and he gets stuck right here. You can see where he doesn't get any lower body through. He's not able to shift into the lead side at all. And that's what gets him stuck. You can see we don't see any spikes on the right foot.